Tonight, shocking attack. A gang of children charged, a woman robbed and terrorised with a knife. A housing storm brewing on the Gold Coast. Warnings families will be waiting years to rebuild. Fists fly as a wild brawl breaks out between fans and security at a popular festival. Why Queensland farmers are tonight threatening to halt supplying fruit and vegetables to our major supermarkets. Hundreds of Boeing planes grounded after a mid-air cabin blowout. And no clothes, no worries. The naked stuntman making a splash.
This is 9 News Queensland with Wendy Kingston.
Good evening. We begin tonight with a crime committed by children who should have been home in bed. The 3 offenders, as young as 12 years old, are tonight facing serious charges after allegedly robbing a woman at knife point. The victim describing the traumatic ordeal as it unfolded on the doorstep of her Gold Coast home.
In handcuffs, surrounded by police. 3 kids, the youngest just 12 years old, tonight behind bars accused of robbing a woman at knife point.
They, terrorised us.
53-year-old Kelly Hodge was taking her dog for a nightly stroll around her Pimpamar neighbourhood around 10 p.m.
And I didn't realise until I was nearly home that they were following me.
Then a horrifying turn of events.
One of the guys has said, young fellas have said, "Can I pat your dog, miss?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." So he's gone down to pat him and he's turned around with a scalpel and looked at me and said, "Give me your effing keys." So then the other young boy come up close to me with another scalpel and ripped the keys off me.
Before fleeing, an ominous warning.
"We'll be back to get your car. Yeah, we'll be back."
Shaken and terrified she'd be attacked a second time, Kelly fled up this alleyway to her neighbour, who telephoned police.
Kelly came around to my door, knocking on it, yelling out, "Ring the police, ring the police. I've been robbed."
Police swarming the area, a dog squad tracking down the youths before they were arrested nearby. 3 offenders aged 12, 13 and 15, all charged with 1 count of armed robbery.
I think I'm in shock because I didn't expect 12 and 13-year-old kids to do that.
They'll remain behind bars until facing Southport Children's Court at a later date, but that's little relief to Kelly.
Every noise last night after that happened, I was like, I haven't slept.
Others, like the family of this Coorparoo home, are so traumatised they're refusing to return at all. Their house robbed on Christmas morning. Cameras capturing a real-life Grinch jumping the fence, sacks of presents in hand. Inside, more thieves pinch keys and wallets. The family still sleeping just metres away. The victims wouldn't appear on camera today for fear of being targeted again, but they say change is desperately needed. Just 1 week into 2024, the new government under pressure over old problems.
Crime, particularly youth crime, in Queensland is unacceptably high, and that we need to do what we can to support victims, but more importantly, prevent crime in the first place.
Olivana Lathouris, 9 News.
Let's go straight to Claire Todd-Hunter now at Parliament House for us. Claire, good evening to you. The Premier is holding an important youth crime meeting. This is happening tomorrow. What are the details on that?
Wendy, Stephen Miles is expected to meet with Ben Cannon, founder of the Voice for Victims Group, an advocate for youth justice reform and a representative for victims of youth crime. Now, this will be the first meeting between the two since the Premier stepped into the top job last month. And we understand Mr Cannon will be presenting a list of requests to the Premier. Now, Stephen Miles did admit today more does need to be done in Queensland to curb youth crime. He says his focus is on early intervention and preventing repeat offenders.
For the small number that go on to be repeat offenders, there needs to be serious consequences, and those consequences need to involve rehabilitation in detention. So they're the programs that the government is focused on delivering, assessing and investing in.
Now, Wendy, the Youth Justice Reform Select Committee was formed last October. They've since been appealing for submissions from the public, whether that's victims of youth crime or anyone who has had any lived experience with the youth justice system, to present their submissions before that deadline approaches at midday this Wednesday. That's before the committee meets on Friday. Wendy?
It's a big week ahead. Claire, thank you. Well, Gold Coast families devastated by the Christmas storms have been told they could be waiting years for home repairs or rebuilds. A fortnight on, power is finally fixed. Crews tonight celebrating not only an incredible effort, but an incredibly lucky escape.
Things going sideways at Guanabara last night.
They've rolled 1.5 times, approximately 30 metres, down a very steep embankment.
The truck's brakes failing as workers tried to restore power to homes.
Fortunately, the two drivers, 43 and 46 years of age, were able to extract themselves from the truck without injury.
Just one small mishap in the mammoth effort to get the town back on the grid after weeks in the dark. At the peak of the storms, 130,000 properties had their power cut. But by 10 o'clock tonight, Energex is expecting the remaining 1,500 properties will be back online.
We've ranged every day, up to over 1,000 staff most days on the ground, and then we've got all the support staff in the background. Making
leaps on a long road to recovery.
10 homes have been completely destroyed, 152 severely damaged, and 406 have moderate damage.
Families warned they could be waiting up to 2 years to have their homes repaired, the disaster piling on top of an existing housing crisis.
We need to continue new builds as well. The housing market is constrained right now. We've seen thousands of people move to Queensland from other states, and that's put great pressure on housing supply.
The federal government stepping in to help financially.
Is a one-off payment of $1,000 per eligible adult and $400 per eligible child.
Also activating a recovery allowance.
Now that is a 13-week payment, or up to 13 weeks at the job seeker level, for those whose access to their workplace has been impacted.
The next step in the clean-up.
In 2 weeks' time, school goes back. We have got to make sure that the buses are running, that kids have got their uniforms, they've got their bags, that schools are okay. That is our absolute next focus.
Yasmin Burnell, 9 News.
Meanwhile, financial support is also being ramped up for farmers in the state's far north following ex-tropical cyclone Jasper. Hopevale, Wujal and Yarrabah all added to the list today.
It will mean that eligible farmers from those 3 shires will be able to access extraordinary recovery grants of up to $75,000 to assist with immediate recovery.
And this weather disaster is just the latest blow for Queensland farmers, right now at war with the supermarkets over growing price gaps. The federal government is examining the Supermarket Code of Conduct as farmers threaten to divert produce from local shelves to overseas.
They've fought through droughts, floods and fires, but tonight our farmers say it's prices pushing them to the wall.
It's destroying us. We're going broke. Industry's going broke. There's a serious risk to food security in Australia. A serious risk.
Producers angry that the prices they get paid don't match the prices we all pay at the checkout.
Supermarkets are cleaning up, and they're cleaning up not just at farmers' expense, they're cleaning up at consumers' expense as well.
They're paying us back $2.20 a kilo. They're retailing $6.50 this week, so you can see the difference.
Ross Marcelino spoke to the Today Show while harvesting his zucchinis.
Going forward, what are we going to do with our farmers? We're not talking about just zucchinis, we're talking about all produce.
Yeah. This is an issue that I've been calling on the supermarkets to deal with for months now.
Tonight, the Albanese government is reviewing the Supermarket Code of Conduct, and a Senate inquiry will look at the power and practices of supermarkets over the next few months. Coles and Woolies say they are cooperating. Producers say they have no choice but to look elsewhere.
I'm not doing well in Japan, but I know what I'm getting, and I know I'm not losing.
You'll have less produce coming to Australia. In fact, we could be relying on more imports, while Australian producers feel they get better returns sending their product overseas, which means Australian consumers miss out.
It's really important for our national economy that we do export our fruit, veg and other agricultural production, but we also want to make sure farmers receive a decent pay from supermarkets when it comes to supplying the domestic market as well.
Keeping Australian produce in Australia will benefit farmers and shoppers. Tonight, giving Australian consumers more information may help make that a reality.
Publish wholesale prices so the public get to see what the grower's getting, because it's not us charging stupid money, it's the damn retailer.
We need the ACCC to get underneath the bonnet of this and to understand how much the supermarkets are gouging both our fruit farmers and our meat producers, so that everyone's getting a fair price from the farm gate right through to your plate.
Charles Croucher, 9 News.
A Virgin plane full of Australians coming home from Japan has been forced to turn around mid-flight due to a technical issue. VA78 from Tokyo to Cairns returned to the airport. Passengers eventually taken to hotels in the early hours of the morning. Only 4 days ago, 2 planes collided on the tarmac at that very same airport, killing 5 people. An investigation is underway tonight into a fire that tore through a garage in Woolloongabba last night. Firefighters rushing to Abington Street around 8:30, managing to put out that fire about half an hour later. But there was nothing to salvage. An e-scooter, though, was pulled from the ashes but ruled out as the cause. No one was injured. Well, Boeing is tonight facing serious questions over the safety of its aircraft after one of its MAX fleet suffered a mid-air blowout. The Alaska Airlines plane is one of almost 200 now grounded, requiring immediate inspections.
Confusion in the cabin and from the cockpit of Flight 1282, this distress call.
We are emergency, we are depressurized, we do need to return back to, we have 177 passengers.
I woke up to the plane just falling and I knew it was not just normal turbulence because the masks came down, and that's when the panic definitely started to set in.
We were very lucky that this happened at a little over 16,000 feet, not at 35,000 feet. This could have been catastrophic.
Tonight, America's aviation watchdog grounding 171 Boeing planes and ordering immediate inspections on the 737 MAX 9 model amid questions as to how a hunk of Alaska Air's fuselage was ripped away. The plane was travelling from Portland, Oregon to Ontario, California when the cabin suffered a blowout. It's a section on the MAX 8 where a door can, on some models, be installed.
This wasn't even the emergency door. It's essentially a fuselage plug because this is a smaller version of the MAX aircraft, and it doesn't require that many exits.
There was thankfully no one seated near the window.
This isn't the first time Boeing's fleet has come under scrutiny. 4 years ago, the 737 MAX jets were grounded globally in the wake of 2 deadly crashes on MAX 8s.
I would not fly any of these aircraft again that have that door until they've been inspected thoroughly.
No Australian airlines use this aircraft, and while this is an incredibly rare occurrence, from the experts,
keep your seat belts fastened is the one thing you can do.
In the United States, Lauren Tomasi, 9 News.
Donald Trump has hit the campaign trail in the US state of Iowa on the 3rd anniversary of the January 6 Capitol riots. The former president spent 2 hours pleading his case to young voters, hitting back at Joe Biden's claims he's a threat to democracy.
We have a man, he can't put 2 sentences together, he can't speak. Although yesterday he tried to play tough guy, I'm a threat to democracy. He's a threat to democracy because he's incompetent.
Mr. Trump also claimed he'll win November's election for what he says will be the 3rd time. The rescue mission in Japan's Ishikawa prefecture has now become a recovery one, 6 days after a 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck the region. The death toll from the New Year's Day quake has now risen to 126. More than 200 people are still unaccounted for. 11 people, including 5 children, have been killed by a Russian airstrike in Ukraine's partially occupied Donetsk province. Local authorities there say another 8 people were injured. Ukraine fought back, claiming it struck Russia's military airbase in Crimea. A special tribute has been staged ahead of the Women's National Road Cycling Championships in honour of Melissa Hoskins. The former Olympian was killed when she was hit by a ute outside her Adelaide home. She's being remembered as a beacon of strength and bravery.
Helmeted, heads bowed, the usually excited build-up to a race start instead observed as a minute of silence. Tears shed as Australia's women's cycling community grieved together.
Mel was a mother, a daughter,
a sister, a very much loved friend, and beyond this, she was an Olympian, a world beater, and one of the best athletes Australian cycling has and will ever see.
It's a week since 32-year-old former Olympian Melissa Hoskins died from the injury she suffered when she was hit by her husband's ute outside the family's Adelaide home. He is alleged to have been at the wheel. Also, an Olympic cyclist, Rowan Dennis, is charged with causing the death amid an act to endanger life. The National Road Cycling Championships in Ballarat, the first time the shocked Australian riding community has been together since.
Mel was a beacon of strength, determination and bravery. Her vibrant spirit and resilience inspired everyone around her. She brought a unique lightheartedness to our lives.
The cycling community is tight-knit. Many at today's women's race start knew Melissa well.
I had the pleasure of racing with her for a few years, and she was a really strong part of the team, a super loyal teammate, and will be greatly missed.
I think everyone's devastated. It's pretty shocking to see a loss of life and a fellow cyclist lose their life in tragic circumstances.
The next event on the cycling calendar is the biggest, the Tour Down Under here in Adelaide. Rowan Dennis is a former winner. He was set to be an ambassador this year, but has now been dropped from the program. Instead, there will be another tribute to his wife before an Adelaide memorial service and then a private family funeral in her hometown of Perth.
I'm sure the cycling community and the rest of Australia will get behind the family and wrap their arms around the kids as well.
Inga Nielsen, 9 News.
Still ahead tonight, fists fly trackside. Next, ugly scenes as a wild brawl erupts at a popular festival. A random stabbing spree, 4 attacks in just 2 hours, a man with a bag of knives arrested. Plus, it's finals day. We are live at the Brisbane International. And at the end of sport, all eyes on our homegrown stars as they prepare for this year's Golden Globes. A popular car festival in Canberra has descended into disarray when a brawl broke out between patrons and security guards. Summer-Nats fans have been filmed being beaten and kicked after guards employed to keep them safe lost control.
Their vests say crowd safety, but their fists are sending a different message. It's ugly, it's bloody. It's Summer Nats 2024 in Canberra, where the unsanctioned slugfest sideshow became the main event yesterday afternoon.
What the actual
Provoked or not, this is crowd control like you've rarely seen before. Security guards and patrons at war. Punches thrown from both sides throughout almost countless smaller skirmishes.
Get booted. See you later. Don't want to play by the rules. See you later.
Some guys take it a bit too far of a Saturday afternoon.
In this moment, crowd safety staff chase down a patron, throw him against the wall with this guard apparently kicking him in the head while he's on the ground. This guard in the red hat features in several clips taken by racing fans. Appearing to throw plenty of punches. At plenty of patrons, including ones that aren't even looking.
In big crowds, there's always going to be, the guys that go around and want to cause problems.
ACT police were busy.
You need to get both of them.
2 patrons were arrested for unrelated incidents, and the crowd controllers questioned before their supervisor packed some of them onto a bus and ordered them to leave. Summer Nats is meant to be Revhead heaven. A 4-day festival with fans fuelled by roaring engines and screeching tyres, giving the term Hot Wheels a whole new meaning. Police are investigating and out in force on the final day of the festival. Alex Einke, 9 News.
A woman is fighting for life tonight after a man allegedly went on a stabbing rampage across Melbourne. This man, captured on CCTV, is accused of travelling to multiple suburbs, stabbing 5 strangers, including a 31-year-old woman, and leaving 4 others with injuries to their arms and their legs. Police used pepper spray to subdue and then arrest the man.
It's pretty terrifying to think that something like a random attack like that as well, so close to home, can happen.
Police allege his backpack was a trove of weapons, including kitchen knives. They say he was showing signs of being drug affected or experiencing a mental health episode. Well, gold medal shooter Michael Diamond's dream of an Olympic comeback this year in Paris is now over after failing to overturn a firearms ban. The 2-time gold medal winner had his gun licence revoked after he was found guilty of firearms and drink driving offences in Port Stephens in 2017. Move over electric, we're going hydrogen power. Our reporter next gets behind the wheel of one of the rarest climate-friendly cars on the road. That story is just ahead. Also still to come for you tonight, see the video. Flames fly as a terrifying tornado carves through Florida. A heart-stopping T-bone collision caught on camera. The loss of a major soccer identity sparks 3 days of mourning. And a mid-morning skinny dip catches shoppers off guard. Welcome back. A terrifying smash has been caught on dash cam. This car was driving behind a truck on the Warrego Highway towards Gatton. As the truck merges to turn left, it quickly swerves back into the right lane, and the reason why becoming very clear in just the blink of an eye. Wow. Incredibly, everyone walked away from that crash. That is close. Well, residents in Miami have been hit by a freak tornado that weather radars almost missed. The huge storm causing explosions and ripping up debris only minutes after a weather alert was sent out.
It could be a scene from a Marvel movie. But this mega storm is no special effect.
Whoa! That's it. Oh my God!
A tornado rolling through the town of Fort Lauderdale in Florida. The force of the storm creating explosions.
It's full blown now.
Residents anxiously watching on from their high-rise apartments with no time to prepare.
Oh my God, this is so scary to watch. This is literally my worst fear.
I'm so happy it's going away. Oh, just flip that boat over!
Have you people come to us? No.
The National Weather Service issued an alert around 5:50 p.m. local time, just 5 minutes before the funnel cloud formed over the coastal city, creating flashes of green light, sparks and hurling debris. Before forming a waterspout over the harbour.
Oh my God, Ryan!
Damaging boats and downing power lines.
It hit like an electrical grid.
Oh.
Emergency crews now working to clean up the mess and restore electricity. There have been no reports of injuries.
Oh my God.
Erin Ramsey, 9 News.
Brazilian football legend Mario Zagallo has died at the age of 92. He won 4 World Cups for Brazil, 2 as a player and then 2 more as a coach. Zagallo played in the team which won the country's first World Cup in 1958 and also coached the 1970 winning team featuring Pelé. Brazil's president has announced 3 days of national mourning. Well, it's hard to believe, but today marks 3 months since the Hamas-Israel war started. And as the US tries to stop the conflict widening, Hezbollah has launched a barrage of missiles from southern Lebanon into Israel.
Thunder in the hills. As Hezbollah and Israeli forces exchange fire, Hezbollah launched a barrage of 62 rockets at northern Israel. A preliminary response, it said, for the assassination of Hamas deputy leader in Beirut. The IDF response? Attacks on what it says were Hezbollah compounds deep inside the Lebanese border. The sounds of war echoed around northern Israel. Most residents in these towns have gone, but not all.
I'm not worried or afraid with the missile, with the alarms, because I used to it.
In Gaza, as aid trucks made their way in, some of the most desperately needed supplies were finally delivered. Medicines via the World Health Organization.
This is the first time we've been able to make this delivery in about 10 days. So hospitals have been running short on some supplies, but we hope that this delivery and future deliveries will help to meet the needs of these hospitals, which are working at 2 or 3 times their normal capacity.
Flying into the fray once again, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Turkey at the start of a week-long trip to try to prevent further escalation.
It is vital that we engage in this diplomacy now, both for the sake of the future of Gaza itself and more broadly.
It's his 4th such mission since the October 7 Hamas attacks and Israel's relentless response. The stakes have never been higher. As thousands protested in Tel Aviv against Benjamin Netanyahu's government, 3 months on, there's still no agreed picture of when this conflict ends or how. Brett McLeod, 9 News.
Well, a rather cheeky change of pace now. Shoppers at an outdoor store in the US state of Alabama received quite the eyeful when a naked man cannonballed into its aquarium. The misadventure began after he crashed his car outside the shop and swiftly ended as he was taken down by police. What a dive. How good is that? The 42-year-old now faces several charges, including public lewdness. In the news ahead, fresh calls for an urgent rail crossing change after 2 train drivers die. Also tonight, we meet the ball boys and girls who keep the Australian Open bouncing along. The hydrogen-powered cars changing the game for climate-friendly vehicles. And the major new developments soaring to new heights in Brisbane. The South Brisbane skyline is soaring to new heights. Developers have submitted plans to build a 31-storey residential high-rise. It's one of the biggest towers proposed since the Brisbane City Council introduced a new planning instrument to allow taller buildings across the Kurilpa precinct. The Stockwell development project would include 130 units, a rooftop garden and swimming pool. The council's new rules pave the way for towers as high as 90 storeys in that area. The country's largest rail freight operator is calling for a national summit to act on safety at tens of thousands of level crossings. It follows the deaths of 2 of Pacific National's train drivers in a crash on New Year's Eve.
The Barrier Highway in South Australia near the New South Wales border, the scene of a New Year's Eve tragedy. Train drivers Mick Warren and Kevin Baker killed when a heavy vehicle allegedly struck their locomotive.
Sometimes that's rail employees, sometimes it's road employees. It doesn't matter. All lives matter. More has to be done. It has to be done more quickly. And we are calling for an urgent summit nationally.
Pacific National wants that to involve federal and state governments, industry groups, private operators and unions to consider life-saving measures and reforms. Every year, an average of 28 people are killed at one of the more than 23,000 railway-level crossings in Australia. And then there are the injuries and hundreds of near misses. Maddie Bott's fiancé Ethan Hunter and a work colleague were driving a road train when they collided with a Pacific National locomotive at a level crossing between Young and Grenfell in New South Wales nearly 3 years ago. Both were killed instantly.
I just can't believe how long it has taken for people to see that we still have a 19th century approach to level crossings. It's awful. It's like these people who die don't matter.
Maddie's been campaigning for better safety at crossings ever since, frustrated and angry that little, if anything, has changed.
I'm so devastated that that happened, that 2 more men lost their lives while at work.
New South Wales is now trialling a system of train driver activated LED warning signs to better alert road drivers at level crossings. While every level crossing has different variables when it comes to how safe they are, Maddie Bott believes that those that are inherently unsafe, such as the one where her fiancé died, should be closed altogether, especially when there are safer ones nearby.
We owe it to those families, the families of Mick and Kevin, to learn as much as we can from this event to make sure that we do what we can to prevent it from ever happening again.
Maddie agrees.
You just can't put a cost on someone's life.
In a statement, the federal government says it's already acting with funding for research and trials of new technology to be announced next week. Eddie Meyer, 9 News.
There were big smiles on the court at Melbourne Park today as the largest Australian Open ball kid squad in the tournament's history gathered for a team photo. All 424 were sporting their brand new Ralph Lauren uniforms. The tournament kicks off next Sunday, looking good. All eyes on our Aussie stars, the actors tipped to win big at this year's Golden Globes. Then in sport, the Demon delivers another top 10 win. Can he back it up at the Australian Open? The Bullets get physical in a drought-breaking win over the Kings.
And I'll have your sport from right here at Pat Rafter Arena, where we're into the second set of the men's final. Good evening from the Brisbane International, where Holger Rune and Grigor Dimitrov are facing off in the men's final. All the stars on show at Pat Rafter Arena for the final day of action here, including the stadium's namesake on hand for what's been an epic final so far. The pair have split their previous 2 encounters, and this one has been just as tense, with Dimitrov taking the first set in a tiebreaker after 1 hour and 9 minutes of action. A women's champion has been crowned here at Pat Rafter Arena for the first time since 2020. It was billed as a blockbuster, a rematch of last year's Australian Open final between Aryna Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina, as this time the Kazakhstani got her revenge.
The world number 4 against the world number 2. Aryna Sabalenka's smile didn't last long.
Game. What a return. Rybakina has the double break.
Elena Rybakina didn't need to do much as her opponent produced a first set meltdown on Pat Rafter Arena, at times unable to even get the ball over the net. The entire set taking just 25 minutes. A bagel for the Belarusian, ending in fitting fashion.
Game and first set, Rybakina.
Sabalenka almost throwing in the towel.
Well, Sabalenka had started walking to the chair. She'd given up on that point.
An ironic celebration for a rare point in her favour, but increasingly frustrated, losing the first 8 games of the match.
Game. Well, there's the break.
Relief at last when Sabalenka got on the board.
Game. Sabalenka. Sabalenka breaks.
But for as out of sorts as the former world number 1 was, Rybakina was just as clinical.
Oh, that is a ripper from Rybakina.
The second set a little more competitive, but the result the same. A comprehensive straight sets victory for the Kazakhstani.
Game, same match, Rybakina. A masterclass.
It was still not as easy as it might look from outside.
Mark Gottlieb, 9 News.
Australia might not have made the final of the United Cup, but there's no doubt Alex de Minaur sent a warning to the world on the eve of the Aussie Open. The Demon with a 3-set fight back against world number 6, Alexander Zverev.
A 10 out of 10 week for Alex de Minaur.
And there it is. De Minaur does it for Australia.
That's 3 wins against 3 of the world's top 10 and enough to get the Demon his own place in the esteemed group.
To be able to do it in Sydney on Ken Rosewall Arena in front of friends, family, it's a memory that I'll cherish forever.
He's the first Australian male to hit the highest echelon since his mentor, Leighton Hewitt, in 2006. De Minaur plans on staying there.
This last week has helped my record significantly against top 10 opponents. Ultimately, it's my drive that has put me in this position and the fact that I want to get the absolute most out of myself.
Let's not set limits on Alex. You know, everyone starts with 7 matches needed to win the title. It'd be great to see an Aussie make a run.
De Minaur levelled the semi-final after Ayla Tomlanović's 3-set defeat to 3-time Grand Slam champion Angelique Kerber. Storm Hunter and Matt Ebden had match points in the deciding mixed doubles, but couldn't convert in the thrilling match tiebreak that didn't finish until 2:20 this morning.
Team Germany find their way to the final.
Tom Marriott, 9 News.
Cameron Bancroft has made a passionate plea to Aussie selectors as they look to replace David Warner as opener. Bancroft wants to make amends for his role in the infamous Sandpaper Gate incident, claiming he owes the Australian public.
As the Australian side celebrates David Warner's retirement, those in line to replace him not the only ones putting their hands up.
I feel like I'm, physically, mentally and emotionally, ready to take that opportunity.
Cameron Bancroft's potential has been obvious since his unbeaten 82 debut at the Gabba in 2017, but now, 31 years old, Bancroft's past looms larger than his future, known more for his involvement in Sandpaper Gate than scoring runs. 6 years on, the retirement of the scandal's orchestrator could be Bancroft's ticket back to Test cricket.
We all make mistakes in the world, and I've definitely, done that in my playing career. I feel like I definitely, owe it to my country to, put those lessons, into play.
Despite Bancroft's prolific output at Shield level and recent form in the Big Bash, all-rounder Cameron Green is considered the favourite to slot back into the Australian side. Steve Smith putting his hand up to open, making room for Green, a move endorsed by Australia's number 3.
Ball swinging around, nipping around. I mean, he's got a beautiful technique to combat pretty much any type of bowling, so there's probably no one you want out there more.
Those in charge a little more wary.
So you've got to make sure you're not removing the strengths of the team in the search to fill a gap also.
Andrew McDonald's concerns echoed by Bancroft.
I feel like it's probably a, specialist position. I want that opportunity.
Jacob Funk, 9 News.
Raw fans were having flashback to last week's record-breaking drubbing after falling behind in the opening minute against Sydney FC. But despite conceding again before half-time, Brisbane weren't embarrassed this week. A 2-1 loss, a significant improvement on 8-1 in Ben Khan's first game as coach.
There was definitely a lot of progress. I think if you look at where we were a week ago in the result and the performance, and to where we were today, we were competitive. But, we're not here to hang in games and lose games 2-1.
Brisbane face Newcastle next Sunday. Not for the first time this season, Aaron Baines found himself face-to-face with the opposition. The Bullets' big man coming to the aid of his teammates in today's clash against the Kings. Nathan Sobey delivering another brilliant performance as Brisbane claim their first win against Sydney at Kudos Bank Arena since 2017. Sobey had a game-high 27 in the 8-point win. Wendy, he's been a shining light for them this season.
Isn't he just? Thank you very much for that, Bronte. Well, Hollywood's awards season kicks off tomorrow, would you believe, with the 81st Golden Globes. The event will take place at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in California with a star-studded lineup. Barbie and Oppenheimer are leading nominations, and there's hope Australians, including Margot Robbie, will bring home a Globe.
No one's going to leave here unhappy. I think Margot Robbie will be holding a Golden Globe or 2 in her hands tomorrow night.
And you can watch it all live on Stan from 11 a.m. Well, in just 3 minutes' time, the race for a climate-friendly fuel gets a whole lot closer. Our reporter gets behind the wheel of one of the rarest cars on the road. That story is just a few moments away for you. But first, a check of the weather, and we're back with Bronte at the Brisbane International. Any chance, Bronte, of blue skies this week?
Intermittently is all I can say, Wendy. It's probably best to keep a brolly in the car. We're going to have showers right throughout the rest of the week, and I'll have your full weather forecast coming up not too far away.
Welcome back. In the race for climate-friendly fuel for our cars, there's a new kid on the block. A select group of manufacturers has released hydrogen-powered cars. And Mark Burrows jumped behind the wheel for a glimpse into our motoring future.
It's not a Porsche or a Ferrari. It's far more unique. I'm behind the wheel of one of the rarest cars on the road, a hydrogen-powered Hyundai.
And here on the dash we can see that the car's driven 16 kilometres since we filled it,
We've purified 33.2 kilolitres of air, which is enough for 2 humans to breathe for a whole day.
So no exhaust. In fact, you're cleaning the air.
The car is like a rolling air purification system that's cleaning the air of the cars, buses and trucks around us.
With electric-powered car sales booming, Hyundai and Toyota are offering a hydrogen-powered alternative. Forget about hours of charging. You can fill your tank in just 3 minutes. The hydrogen combines with oxygen. The reaction creates the energy that powers the electric motor. The big advantage hydrogen cars have over electric vehicles is range. On average, electric vehicles do around 350k per charge. But the hydrogen car can do 650k on a tank. The downside at this stage, there are only 6 refuelling stations in Australia. Hyundai and Toyota are now joining forces to try and ramp up the number of refuelling points. But hydrogen is playing catch-up. It will be an option, but when it comes to passenger cars, electric is shaping up as king of the road. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
Now it's time for our full weather forecast with Bronte Gildea. Bronte, how's it been out there today?
Muggy, Wendy, that's probably the only way to describe it. The cloud cover cooling things a little for finalists on the court, but barely a breath of wind, which didn't help. About 27 degrees during the women's final and cooler again for the men, so comfortable viewing for spectators who will also have a dry run home, which is good news. For the rest of the southeast today, sitting just below the January average across most parts. On the coast, Coolangatta and Southport around 27 degrees, while further inland a maximum of 29 for Gatton, Warwick and Archerfield, a top of 28 degrees for the Sunshine Coast. To the map now, troughs driving heavy rain to the most northern parts of the country, including the east coast, though we'll see the most rainfall over New South Wales and Victoria, bracing for about 150 to 200 millimetres of rain as thunderstorms roll through, with more on the way. Most of the country getting wet tomorrow. Sydney with increasing downpours and 29, Canberra and Melbourne storms and heavy rain, Hobart as well with a top of 19 degrees, Darwin a top of 33 and rain for you, Perth escaping the wet weather, sunny with a top of 35 tomorrow, while Adelaide will have only the slight chance of a shower. Tops of 33 in Cairns and Townsville with showers throughout the day. We can expect a storm inland for Mount Isa, reaching 33 as well. Inland of the central Queensland coast, expecting a band of storms in Longreach, with just showers forecast to reach the coast, with a top of 33 in Rocky, 32 in Gladstone and 31 in Gympie. At home in the southeast tomorrow, we'll wear the tail end of the wet weather affecting most of the east coast of Queensland. A high chance of showers and 29 in Noosa, Caboolture with overnight temperatures between 17 and 21 and a daytime high of around 29, a top of 31 and more showers for Ipswich, wet all the way down to the border, Coolangatta a top of 29. On the bay, light easterly winds early in the morning, turning back toward the north before midday. Seas below a metre. On Gold Coast waters, a similar story. If you're planning on heading out for a paddle, get out there early while the winds are still south, 1 to 2 foot at D-Bar, small on the southern points, but otherwise nice and clean. Here in Brisbane tomorrow, it will be partly cloudy with some showers around. Expect those in the late morning and afternoon. Ahead, similar muggy temperatures, 31 for Wednesday and Thursday, and showers around, that rain persisting into next week. Ipswich with cloudy days ahead as well, a possible storm on the way for Wednesday, the Gold Coast reaching 30 through the middle of next week as well. And on the Sunshine Coast, you guessed it, Wendy, a fair bit more rain ahead as well.
Oh dear. All right, Bronte, thank you so much for that. And that is 9 News Queensland this Sunday. Thanks so much for your company. I'm Wendy Kingston from the entire team. Good night.